Well, good morning all, and many thanks to the organisers, Shinhan Bank and IGE, for your invitation, and thank you all for your welcome to Seoul. I was last in Seoul in 2019, so pre-pandemic, but I've maintained a very close interest in Seoul and its development, and have had the pleasure of meeting representatives from Seoul in London last year. We've worked in partnership with Seoul Metropolitan Government for some years now, and it really is a thrill to be back in Korea. I'm Mike Wardle. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at the ZN Group. We are the City of London's leading commercial think tank focused on economics, finance, technology, and science. But we're best known internationally for tracking the performance of international financial centres through the Global Financial Centres Index, and more recently through the Global Green Finance Index and the Smart Centres Index. I'm sometimes asked why we focus on research into individual cities rather than focusing at a country level. And partly the answer is in the remarks just given by our chairman now. We are facing many challenges across the world, whether it's from climate, demography, or the impact of technological advances. And these challenges all require finance, and innovative finance often, to make progress. And there's lots of research to show that innovation happens where you bring together clusters of people with common interests and goals to address problems. Financial centres represent just such communities where finance can innovate to provide solutions, and at national level, the same does not quite apply. A very brief word about our methodology. We publish factor assessment indices. These combine two sets of data, one of which is perception data. We regularly survey finance professionals about their views about where in the world are good places to do business. But we then combine those assessments with over 130 quantitative data measures, which we draw from a wide variety of sources. And we use a machine learning algorithm to look at the correlations between those two. In effect, what we're doing is saying that we don't know how to weight the quantitative measures, but finance professionals do know how to weight the financial measures, and they're the ones that drive the index. I'm going to focus today on the Global Financial Centres Index, which has been running continuously since its beginnings in 2005. We first published the research in 2007. We've just published the 35th edition of the index in March this year. And we can take a look at some of the results in a minute. But first, just to say that the number of financial centres that we are tracking has increased over the years. When we published the first edition of the GFCI, we were tracking just 46 centres. There are now 121 centres in the index. And we heard earlier from Dr. Kruger about the growth in international trade, and you can see almost direct correlation between that growth in trade and the growth in financial centres who are conducting at least some international business. So a look at some of the headlines. New York continues to lead the ranking. It took over from London in 2018, and London hasn't managed to get back the top spot since. We'll see whether that continues. Singapore and Hong Kong follow very close behind. And then in Asia Pacific, Shanghai and Seoul also feature in the top 10. We also, though, produce a separate rating of fintech strength in financial centres. And you'll see that while New York is also in the lead there, and some Chinese centres are doing particularly well, like Shenzhen in fourth, Seoul has now entered the top 10 for fintech centres as well. So this is evidence of breadth, I think, of strength in Seoul, and really important. So let's focus on Seoul. Just 5 years ago, Seoul ranked 36th in the world in our rankings. Since then, it's risen. It's very firmly established in the top 20, the top 15 centres in the world. And I always have to remind financial centres that if they drop one or two ranking places in one edition, they may well come back. It's the trend that's really important. And you'll see that trend for Seoul, both on the ranking and rating, is really strong. That also applies to the average assessment given in our survey to financial professionals across the world who gradually are improving their assessment, the average assessment given to Seoul. But then we do further analysis of the index to help us zoom in on centre strengths. The first of that analyses is the area of competitiveness sub-indices, using the quantitative data associated only with, say, business environment or human capital, and running the model with just this data set. And here we see that Seoul performs well across all areas, featuring in the top 13 in the world, but compared with its overall ranking of 10th, its strengths are in human capital, and it has little room for development in the business environment measures, financial sector development, and reputational measures. The next analysis we do is by industry sector, and this is really where we take the survey responses, the perception data from people working in different parts of the financial industry, and combine them with all the quantitative data. On this analysis, Seoul's reputation is strong amongst those who are working in professional services, government and regulatory roles, fintech and trading, but less strong in banking, investment management, insurance, and general finance. And I'll talk a bit about the implication for those of these analyses a little later. The next focus for Seoul relates to the pattern of regional assessments. This is looking at the perception survey and where people in the world know something about Seoul and how they rate Seoul. So people in Western Europe made up 23% of the people who rated Seoul in the survey, but those people rated Seoul lower than average. Now, it's partly because we in Western Europe tend to be a bit more pessimistic than the rest of the world, but actually it's a useful indicator as to where you might need to focus effort. People in the Asia-Pacific region made up 50% of those who rated Seoul, but they rated Seoul just above average, and you have higher than average assessments from people in North America. So a few words on how to move ahead. We've seen that Seoul has done very well in making progress in a highly competitive market. And how can it continue to promote its work? First, through marketing. Building a reputation takes time, but does bring great rewards as people want to do business in a centre which has a good reputation. Places like London and New York have built their reputations over many years, whether that's the reputation for fairness and rule of law, or for innovation, or for quality. And this takes real effort and time. But all the marketing in the world doesn't help unless the underlying strength of the ecosystem is in place. And remember, your competitors are also working very hard to ensure that they have an edge and are attractive places to live and work. So some specific lessons for Seoul. First of all, marketing may need to focus on particular regions and sectors, Western Europe and Middle East and Africa, and on the banking, investment management and insurance sectors. You need to have some work to do to tell the story of Seoul in those areas. While performing well across all areas of competitiveness, there's room for development in business environment, financial sector development and reputational measures, and a continued focus on international openness, where we had some qualitative research done which showed that Korea is perceived as perhaps a little less internationally focused, slightly bureaucratic, and with a perceived gap in English language skills. But against a top 10 performance in the world, these are minor things to be working on. And very finally, some thoughts on some thinking we've developed over the years on features of successful financial centres. First, you need to have international people to be a truly international business centre. And so you need to give attention to how to attract and retain international talent. Successful people like to live in successful cities, which are cosmopolitan, which value culture, sports, international influences, where there's a good quality of life. Reputation is vital. You can lose one overnight, and you need to be guarding that very carefully. And finally, trust is the glue that holds relationships together. All financial transactions and trade rely on trust, which only comes from reaching out, talking, communicating with our friends. I wish Seoul every success in the future, and thank you very much.